I was fixing the ship until I found 500 frozen dragon eggs in the hull. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. The cargo hauler Meridian Drift floated in the black void between star systems, its hull scarred by decades of interstellar travel, and inside its cramped maintenance corridors, Tyler Grant worked alone with nothing but a plasma torch and a growing sense that this particular repair job was going to be more complicated than the manifest suggested. The ship belonged to the Galactic Trade Consortium, a massive organization that connected hundreds of worlds, and Tyler was just a human mechanic, one of the few of his species working the deep space routes where most crews preferred automated systems or specialized engineering drones. Tyler wiped sweat from his forehead and adjusted his work light, illuminating the damaged section of the inner hull. The Meridian Drift had taken a hit from micrometeorite debris 3 weeks ago, and the captain had finally allocated budget for repairs now that they were between cargo runs. It was supposed to be a simple patch job. Cut out the damaged plating, weld in new sheets, seal it up, and move on. But when Tyler had started cutting into the secondary hull layer, his torch had revealed something unexpected, a hollow space that should not have existed according to the ship's blueprints. Now, as he peered into the darkness beyond the hole he had cut, Tyler felt a cold draft against his face. That was impossible. The ship's environmental systems did not extend into the dead spaces between hull layers. He grabbed a handheld scanner and swept it across the opening. The readings made him pause. There was a chamber back there, roughly 15 meters by 20 meters, and it was cold. Not just unheated cold, but cryogenic cold. Negative 150 degrees. Tyler keyed his communicator and said, "Captain Velos, this is Grant down in Section 7. I've got something weird here." The reply came back in the clicking, whistling language of the Viridian species, which Tyler's translator rendered into flat, efficient English. "Define weird, Mr. Grant. There's a hidden chamber in the hull. Looks like it's been deliberately concealed, and it is running a cryo system. Did you know about this?" A long pause followed, then Velos said, "I did not. The Meridian Drift has changed hands 17 times in its operational life. There could be any number of modifications I am unaware of. Can you access it?" Tyler examined the opening he had created. It was just barely wide enough for him to squeeze through if he left his tool belt behind. "Yeah, I can get in there. You want me to check it out?" "Proceed with caution, Mr. Grant. Document what you find and report back immediately." Tyler grabbed a portable light pack and his scanner, then carefully maneuvered himself through the jagged opening. The temperature dropped sharply as soon as he entered the hidden chamber, and his breath came out in white clouds despite the heating elements in his work suit. The space was larger than the scanner had suggested, extending deeper into the ship's superstructure. And it was not empty. Rows upon rows of oval containers lined the walls, each one roughly a meter long and half a meter wide, suspended in an intricate web of cryocoolant tubes and power conduits. Tyler approached the nearest container and wiped frost from its transparent surface. Inside, nestled in a gel-like suspension medium, was an egg. Not a chicken egg or any kind of earth egg Tyler had ever seen. This thing was the size of a basketball, with a shell that seemed to shimmer with iridescent patterns even in the dim light. Deep blues and purples swirled across its surface, and as Tyler watched, he could have sworn he saw movement inside, a shadow shifting within the shell. He moved to the next container. Another egg, this one with patterns of crimson and gold. The next one was silver and green. Each egg was unique, each one beautiful in an alien way that made Tyler's engineering mind struggle to classify what he was seeing. Tyler counted the containers in the immediate area. 50. He moved deeper into the chamber and found more. 100. 200. The chamber seemed to extend even further than he had thought, branching into secondary spaces that had been carved out of the ship's infrastructure. By the time he had completed a full survey, Tyler had counted 503 eggs. He activated his communicator again and said, "Captain, you need to see this. I've got 500 frozen eggs down here. Some kind of organic specimens in cryo storage. This is way beyond a simple hidden cargo." Velos's response was sharp. "Eggs? What species?" "I have no idea, but they are big and they look like nothing in the database. The cryo system keeping them frozen is sophisticated too. Military grade at least. This was not a rush job. Someone spent serious credits setting this up. Do not touch anything else, Velos said. I am coming down with First Officer Kellen. Secure the area. Tyler backed away from the eggs and positioned himself near the entrance to the chamber, his mind racing. Who would hide 500 eggs in a cargo hauler? And more importantly, what were they? The patterns on the shells reminded him of something from Earth mythology, something his grandfather had told him stories about when Tyler was young. Dragons. These eggs looked like how he had always imagined dragon eggs would look, if dragons were real. But dragons were not real. They were fantasy creatures from ancient human stories. And yet, as Tyler stared at the rows of frozen eggs, he could not shake the feeling that he had stumbled onto something far more significant than a simple smuggling operation. Captain Velos arrived 20 minutes later, accompanied by First Officer Kellen, a tall, insectoid being from the Mantix Collective. Velos was a Viridian, a species that resembled Earth salamanders but stood upright and possessed 4 arms, each one capable of independent fine motor control. The captain squeezed through the opening Tyler had cut and immediately began scanning the chamber with professional efficiency. Kellen followed, his compound eyes taking in the entire space at once. He moved to the nearest egg container and examined it closely, his mandibles clicking softly. These are draconid eggs, he said finally, his voice carrying a note of disbelief. Draconid? Tyler asked. Like dragons? Kellen turned to face him, and Tyler could have sworn the alien looked worried despite the vast differences in facial structure. The draconids are an ancient species, one of the oldest spacefaring civilizations in the known galaxy. They are also believed to be extinct. The last confirmed sighting of a living draconid was 3,000 years ago. Velos moved along the rows of containers, his scanner chirping constantly as it recorded data. If these are genuine draconid eggs, then this ship is carrying cargo worth more than the entire Galactic Trade Consortium. Draconid genetic material is priceless. Museums would wage wars for a single specimen. And we have 500. Tyler felt his stomach tighten. So someone was smuggling them. But why hide them in a cargo hauler? Why not use a secure vessel? Because, Kellen said slowly, anyone searching for these eggs would be looking at secure vessels. A cargo hauler like the Meridian Drift, with its long history and multiple owners, would be beneath suspicion. This is a sophisticated operation. Velos tapped one of his arms against his translator unit, thinking, we need to determine if these eggs are viable. The cryo system appears to be functioning, but we have no way of knowing how long it has been running or if the eggs are still alive. Tyler stepped forward and said, I can access the system's logs. If this setup has been monitoring the eggs, there should be data we can pull. Do it, Velos said. And be careful. If these eggs are valuable enough to hide this way, then someone will come looking for them eventually. Tyler spent the next 4 hours carefully interfacing with the hidden cryo system, bypassing security protocols and extracting data logs. What he found was both fascinating and disturbing. The system had been installed 42 years ago during one of the Meridian Drift's overhauls at a shipyard in the Outer Rim territories. The eggs had been placed in cryostasis at that time, and the system had been running continuously ever since, drawing power from the ship's main reactor in amounts so small that no routine maintenance check would have noticed. The log showed regular monitoring of the eggs' vital signs. And according to the data, all 503 eggs were alive. More than that, they were developing. Slowly, incrementally, but developing nonetheless. Whatever was inside those shells was growing, waiting for the right conditions to hatch. Tyler presented his findings to Velos and Kellen in the captain's ready room. The eggs are viable, he said, displaying the data on a wall screen. And based on the development rate, I'd estimate they're about 70% through their incubation period. Someone went to a lot of trouble to keep these things safe and hidden. Velos leaned back in his chair, 2 of his arms folded across his chest while the other 2 manipulated a data pad. The question is, what do we do with them? If we report this to the consortium, they will confiscate the eggs, and we will likely face an investigation into how we came to possess them. If we do not report it, we are technically in possession of stolen goods, assuming these eggs were taken illegally. Kellen's antennae twitched. There is another consideration. If these eggs are draconid, then they belong to a species that has not been seen in millennia. The Draconids were known for their intelligence, their strength, and their fierce independence. If these eggs hatch, we could be dealing with 500 beings who have no context for the current state of the galaxy. Tyler had been thinking about that very issue. I've been reading up on Draconid history, he said. According to the archive files, they were apex predators on their home world before they developed space travel. They're also supposed to be incredibly long-lived. Some records suggest a Draconid can live for thousands of years. If these eggs have been in stasis for 42 years, and they're still only 70% developed, how long is their normal incubation period? Kellen consulted his own datapad. Draconid incubation typically lasted between 50 and 60 years under optimal conditions. But these eggs are in cryostasis, which would slow the process significantly. Based on the development rate you observed, I estimate these eggs were laid approximately 120 years ago. Velos stood and began pacing. A sign Tyler had learned meant the captain was deeply troubled. If these eggs were laid 120 years ago, then whoever laid them is likely still alive. Draconids are not known for abandoning their young. Something catastrophic must have happened to separate these eggs from their parents. Tyler thought about that. What if the parents are looking for them? What if that's why they were hidden so carefully? Not to smuggle them, but to protect them? A valid hypothesis, Kellen said. But it does not change our immediate situation. We have 500 Draconid eggs on board, a cryosystem that will fail if we do not maintain it, and no legal framework for what to do with them. Velos stopped pacing and looked at Tyler. Mr. Grant, you discovered these eggs. In some cultures, that would make you responsible for them. What do you think we should do? Tyler had not expected that question. He was just a mechanic, not a leader or a decision-maker. But as he thought about those 500 eggs, each one containing a life that had been waiting for over a century to be born, he realized he did have an opinion. I think we need to find out where they came from and who they belong to. And if we can't find the parents, then we need to figure out how to hatch them safely. These aren't cargo, Captain. They're people. Or they will be, once they hatch. Velos and Kellen exchanged a look, and Tyler saw something like respect in the captain's eyes. Very well, Velos said. We will investigate. But we must be discreet. If word gets out that we have these eggs, we will become targets. Draconid genetic material is not just valuable to museums and scientists. There are those who would kill to possess it or to destroy it. Over the following days, Tyler worked with Kellen to stabilize the cryosystem and ensure the eggs remained safe. The work was meticulous and exhausting, requiring Tyler to fabricate custom parts and rewire sections of the ship's power grid to provide more reliable energy to the hidden chamber. He found himself spending hours at a time in that cold, quiet space, surrounded by the eggs and their silent promise of life. During one of these long work sessions, Tyler noticed something odd. One of the eggs, a smaller one near the back of the chamber with shell patterns of deep violet and silver, seemed to be glowing faintly. He approached it carefully and placed his gloved hand against the transparent container. The egg was warmer than the others, just slightly, but enough to register on his suit's temperature sensors. Tyler checked the monitoring data for that specific egg. Its development rate was accelerating. Whatever was inside was growing faster than the others, and the cryosystem was compensating by increasing coolant flow to keep it at the proper temperature. But even with maximum cooling, the egg's internal temperature was rising. He immediately contacted Kellen and said, "We might have a problem. One of the eggs is developing faster than the others. It's generating heat despite the cryosystem." Kellen arrived within minutes and examined the egg himself. "This is not uncommon in Draconid development," he said. "There are always outliers, individuals who develop at different rates. But if this egg continues to accelerate, it may hatch prematurely." "What happens if it hatches in cryo?" Tyler asked. Kellen's mandibles clicked in a pattern Tyler had learned to recognize as concern. "It would likely die. Draconid hatchlings require warmth and nourishment immediately after hatching. If this one emerges while still frozen, it will not survive more than a few minutes." "Then we need to warm it up," Tyler said. "Gradually, carefully, but we need to get it out of cryo before it hatches on its own." Velos was less than enthusiastic about the plan when Tyler and Kellen presented it to him. "You want to hatch a Draconid egg on my ship? Without knowing what it will need, how it will behave, or if we can even keep it alive?" Tyler met the captain's gaze steadily and said, If we don't, it will die. And something tells me that would be wrong, Captain. These eggs have been waiting for over a century. Someone went to incredible lengths to keep them safe. We can't let one of them die just because we're afraid. Velos was silent for a long moment. Then he sighed, a sound like wind through reeds. Very well. Prepare a containment area in Cargo Bay 3. We will attempt to hatch this egg. But Mr. Grant, if this goes badly, it will be your responsibility to handle the consequences. Tyler nodded and said, Understood, Captain. The process of warming the egg took 3 days. Tyler constructed a specialized incubation chamber using spare parts from the ship's medical bay and engineering supplies, creating an environment that could gradually raise the temperature while monitoring the egg's vital signs. Kellen provided what limited information existed in the archives about draconid hatching requirements, and together they adjusted the chamber's settings to match. Tyler found himself barely sleeping during those 3 days, constantly checking the monitors and making minute adjustments. He felt a strange sense of responsibility for the egg, as if he had become its caretaker simply by discovering it. Late at night, when the ship was quiet and most of the crew was asleep, Tyler would sit beside the incubation chamber and talk to the egg. He felt silly doing it, but something about the situation demanded it. Hey there, little one, he would say. I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm Tyler. I'm the guy who found you. Well, found all of you, actually. 503 eggs. Can you believe that? You're going to have a lot of brothers and sisters when this is all over. He told the egg about Earth, about his childhood in the orbital habitats around Luna, about how he had become a mechanic because he liked fixing things that were broken. He told it about the stars he had seen and the worlds he had visited, about the incredible diversity of life in the galaxy. And he promised, more than once, that he would do everything in his power to keep it safe. On the 3rd day, the egg began to crack. Tyler was in the cargo bay when it happened, running a diagnostic on the incubation chamber's heating elements. He heard a sharp sound, like glass fracturing, and looked up to see a thin line spreading across the egg's surface. He immediately activated the intercom and said, Captain, Kellen, get to Cargo Bay 3 now. It's hatching. They arrived just as the first piece of shell fell away. Tyler watched, transfixed, as something moved inside the egg. A claw emerged, small but sharp, with scales that shimmered in the cargo bay's lights. Then another claw, and then a head pushed through, reptilian and delicate, with large eyes that blinked against the sudden brightness. The creature that emerged from the egg was unlike anything Tyler had expected. It was small, no larger than a house cat, with a serpentine body covered in violet and silver scales. Its wings were folded against its back, translucent membranes that looked too fragile to support flight. But its eyes, those eyes were ancient and intelligent, holding a depth of awareness that made Tyler's breath catch. The baby draconid looked around the cargo bay, taking in its surroundings with obvious curiosity. Then its gaze locked onto Tyler, and it made a sound, a soft chirping trill that seemed to vibrate with meaning. Kellen stepped forward slowly and said, Remarkable. It is aware, fully conscious from the moment of hatching. That level of cognitive development is extraordinarily rare. The draconid took a tentative step forward, its movements unsteady but determined. It crossed the short distance between the incubation chamber and Tyler, then looked up at him and chirped again. I think it recognizes you, Velos said quietly. You were the one speaking to it while it developed. It may have imprinted on your voice. Tyler knelt down slowly, bringing himself to the creature's level. He extended his hand, palm up, in what he hoped was a non-threatening gesture. The draconid sniffed his hand, its nostrils flaring, then it stepped onto his palm and curled its tail around his wrist. It was warm, much warmer than Tyler had expected, and he could feel the rapid beating of its heart. Hey there, little one, Tyler said softly. Welcome to the world. The draconid chirped again, and this time Tyler could have sworn it sounded pleased. Over the next few weeks, Tyler became the unexpected caretaker of the galaxy's youngest draconid. The creature, which Tyler had started calling Ember because of the way its scales seemed to glow in certain light, proved to be both fascinating and challenging. It grew rapidly, doubling in size within the first week and developing coordination at an impressive rate. By the end of the 2nd week, Ember could fly short distances around the cargo bay, and by the 3rd week, It had started producing small bursts of flame. That last development had been alarming until Kellen explained that fire production was a natural part of draconid biology. The flames were not particularly hot at this stage, more like warm exhalations than proper fire, but they demonstrated that Ember was developing normally. Tyler found himself spending almost all his free time with Ember. The draconid followed him everywhere, perching on his shoulder when he worked and sleeping curled up in his quarters at night. It seemed to understand when Tyler spoke, responding to commands and questions with an intelligence that went far beyond animal instinct. Tyler began to suspect that Ember was not just intelligent, but sapient, capable of complex thought and emotion. One evening, as Tyler sat in his quarters reviewing data on the other eggs, Ember suddenly tensed. The draconid's head turned toward the wall, its eyes focusing on something Tyler could not see. Then Ember let out a low, rumbling sound that Tyler had never heard before. It was a warning. "What is it, Ember?" Tyler asked, standing up and looking around. "What do you sense?" Before Ember could respond, the ship's alarm began blaring. Veloz's voice came over the intercom, urgent and clipped. "All crew to alert stations. We are being boarded." Tyler grabbed his emergency beacon and ran for the door, Ember flying close behind him. As he entered the corridor, he could hear the sounds of combat, energy weapons discharging, and the heavy footfalls of intruders moving through the ship. He made his way toward the bridge, staying low and avoiding the main corridors. When he reached the bridge, he found Veloz and Kellen barricaded behind the command consoles, returning fire at a group of armored figures who had breached through the main entrance. The intruders were Kralek's mercenaries, a species known for their brutality and their willingness to work for the highest bidder. And they were clearly here for the eggs. Tyler ducked behind a bulkhead and keyed his communicator. "Captain, what's the situation?" Veloz responded without taking his eyes off the attackers. They came out of nowhere. No warning, no hail, just a hard dock and immediate breach. They are heading for Cargo Bay 3 and the hidden chamber. Someone told them about the eggs. Tyler felt a surge of anger. "How many?" Kellen answered this time. 15 on the bridge. Likely twice that number elsewhere in the ship. We are outnumbered and outgunned." Ember chirped loudly, a sound of clear distress. Tyler looked down at the draconid and saw something in its eyes, a fierce determination that seemed far older than its few weeks of life. And then Ember did something that changed everything. The draconid opened its mouth and spoke, not in chirps or trills, but in words, rendered through some kind of natural translation ability that Tyler did not understand. "Protect the eggs. Protect my siblings. We must not let them fall into darkness." Tyler stared at Ember in shock. "You can talk? Since when can you talk?" Ember looked at him with those ancient eyes and said, "I have always understood. Now I can make you understand me. The eggs are in danger. We must act." Before Tyler could respond, one of the Kralek's mercenaries spotted them and raised a plasma rifle. Tyler shoved Ember behind him and braced for impact, but the shot never came. Instead, Ember burst from behind Tyler's back and flew directly at the mercenary, trailing fire in its wake. The draconid slammed into the mercenary's chest with surprising force, and flames erupted from Ember's mouth. Not the weak exhalations Tyler had seen before, but real fire, hot and intense. The mercenary screamed and fell backward, dropping his weapon. The other Kraleks turned to face this new threat, but Ember was already moving, darting between them with incredible speed, leaving burns and chaos in its path. Tyler seized the moment. He grabbed the fallen plasma rifle and opened fire, his shots finding targets among the confused and distracted mercenaries. Veloz and Kellen joined in, and together they drove the intruders back from the bridge. When the immediate threat was neutralized, Tyler rushed to Ember's side. The draconid was panting, smoke curling from its nostrils, but otherwise unharmed. "That was incredible," Tyler said, "but also incredibly reckless. You could have been killed." Ember looked up at him and said, "You protected me when I was helpless. I will protect you now. That is the way of the clutch." Veloz approached, his weapon still raised, but his expression one of wonder. "It speaks. A hatchling speaks. This is unheard of." Kellen's antennae were twitching rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation or excitement. The archives mention that draconids possess accelerated cognitive development, but this exceeds, all documented cases. This hatchling is extraordinary. Tyler felt a swell of pride, quickly followed by worry. If there are more mercenaries heading for the eggs, we need to stop them now. Ember, can you sense your siblings? Do you know if they're in danger? Ember closed its eyes and was still for a moment, then said, yes. I feel them. They are cold and sleeping, but they are afraid. The darkness is coming for them. Then let's make sure the darkness doesn't get them, Tyler said. He looked at Velos and Kellen. Captain, I need access to the ship's security systems. If I can lock down the sections leading to the hidden chamber, we can bottleneck the mercenaries and pick them off. Velos nodded and said, do it. Kellen and I will reinforce the corridor outside Cargo Bay 3. Mr. Grant, take the Draconid with you. It seems you two work well together. Tyler and Ember moved through the ship's maintenance tunnels, avoiding the main corridors where mercenaries were still active. Tyler accessed security panels as they went, sealing blast doors and rerouting environmental controls to create obstacles for the intruders. Ember stayed close, occasionally using its fire to weld doors shut or create barriers. As they worked, Tyler asked, Ember, do you know why these mercenaries are here? Who sent them? Ember was quiet for a moment, then said, I do not know who, but I know why. The Draconids were feared. Our ancestors were powerful, and power breeds both respect and terror. When we disappeared, many were relieved. Others sought to claim what we left behind. These eggs represent both a threat and an opportunity to those who remember. Tyler stopped at an access panel and began rerouting power. What happened to the Draconids? Why did you disappear? There was a long pause before Ember answered. I do not have those memories. They are not past to hatchlings. But I feel their absence. A great emptiness where my ancestors should be. Something terrible happened, and we are all that remain. Tyler finished his work and said, then we'll make sure you survive. All of you. I promise. They made their way to the hidden chamber, arriving just as Kellen and Velos were engaging another group of mercenaries. Tyler joined the fight, using the plasma rifle to provide covering fire while Ember darted between enemies, creating confusion and forcing them to divide their attention. The battle was brief but intense. The mercenaries were well-trained and well-equipped, but they had not expected to face a Draconid, even a young one. Ember's fire, combined with Tyler's marksmanship and the tactical coordination of Velos and Kellen, turned the tide. Within minutes, the remaining mercenaries were retreating, leaving their wounded behind. Tyler checked the hidden chamber and confirmed that the eggs were undisturbed. The cryosystem was still functioning, and all 502 remaining eggs showed stable vital signs. He let out a breath he did not know he had been holding and said, they're safe. All of them. Ember flew into the chamber and landed on one of the containers, pressing its forehead against the transparent surface. My siblings, it said softly. Sleep well. I will watch over you. Velos entered the chamber and surveyed the scene. We cannot stay here, he said. The mercenaries will regroup and return with reinforcements. We need to move the eggs to a secure location. Where? Tyler asked. Anywhere we go in consortium space, we'll be vulnerable. And we can't exactly hide 500 Draconid eggs forever. Kellen clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. There may be one option. The Sanctum of Remembered Species. It is a neutral facility dedicated to preserving and protecting endangered life forms. They have the resources and the legal standing to safeguard the eggs. Velos considered this. The Sanctum is in the Outer Rim, 3 weeks' journey at best speed. We would have to cross through several contested zones. The risk is considerable. Tyler looked at Ember, then at the rows of frozen eggs, and said, it's worth it. These lives are worth any risk. Ember chirped in agreement and said, we will survive. The clutch will survive. This is the way it must be. The journey to the Sanctum of Remembered Species was long and fraught with danger. The Meridian Drift had to navigate through pirate-controlled territories, avoid consortium patrols that might ask too many questions, and evade the mercenary forces that were clearly still hunting for the eggs. Tyler spent the voyage dividing his time between maintaining the cryosystem, caring for Ember, and helping with ship repairs. Ember continued to grow and develop at an astonishing rate. By the end of the first week, the Draconid was the size of a large dog, with wings capable of sustained flight and fire that could cut through metal. But more impressive than the physical growth was the mental development. Ember demonstrated problem-solving abilities that rivaled any adult sentient, and its emotional intelligence was profound. The Draconid had become not just Tyler's companion, but his friend. One night, as Tyler sat in the cargo bay watching over the eggs, Ember landed beside him and said, "You are troubled." Tyler smiled slightly and said, "Is it that obvious?" "You are always troubled when you think about what comes next," Ember said. "You worry that you will have to say goodbye." Tyler nodded slowly. "When we reach the sanctum, they'll take custody of the eggs. They'll have the resources to hatch your siblings properly, to raise them in a safe environment. But that means I won't be there. You won't need me anymore." Ember moved closer and rested its head against Tyler's arm. "You are wrong," it said. "I will always need you. You are my clutch brother. You spoke to me in the darkness. You kept me safe when I was vulnerable. That bond does not break simply because circumstances change." Tyler felt emotion tighten his throat. "I'm just a human mechanic, Ember. I fix ships. I don't know anything about raising draconids." Ember's eyes gleamed with warmth. "You know the most important thing. You know how to care. That is enough." The Meridian Drift arrived at the Sanctum of Remembered Species on the 21st day of their journey. The facility was massive, a sprawling complex built into an asteroid at the edge of charted space. It was maintained by the Preservation Council, an organization composed of representatives from dozens of species, all dedicated to the protection of endangered life forms. Velos established communication with the Sanctum's administrators and explained the situation. The response was immediate and enthusiastic. Within hours, a team of specialists had boarded the Meridian Drift to assess the eggs and begin preparations for their transfer. The lead specialist was a Velthrian named Dr. Saras, a being who resembled a bipedal otter with 6 arms and bioluminescent patches on her fur. She examined the eggs with obvious awe and excitement. "These are genuine draconid eggs," she confirmed, "and they are all viable. This is the most significant biological discovery in centuries. You have done a great service to the galaxy by bringing them here." Tyler felt a mix of pride and sadness. "What happens now?" he asked. Dr. Saras gestured to the chamber with one of her many arms. "We will transfer the eggs to our advanced incubation facilities. Each one will be monitored individually and hatched under optimal conditions. We have experts in xenobiology, psychology, and education who will ensure these hatchlings receive everything they need to thrive." "And Ember?" Tyler asked. "What about the one who already hatched?" Dr. Saras looked at the young draconid, who was perched on Tyler's shoulder, watching the proceedings with keen interest. "Ember is a unique case. Typically, a hatchling would remain with us for study and care. But it is clear that Ember has bonded with you, Mr. Grant. Separating you would likely cause psychological harm to both parties." Tyler felt hope surge. "So Ember can stay with me? If you are willing to take on that responsibility, yes. Though we would require regular check-ins and progress reports. Ember is not just special because of its species. This hatchling has demonstrated exceptional development. We want to ensure that continues." Tyler looked at Ember and said, "What do you think? Want to stay with me?" Ember chirped happily and said, "Yes. My place is with you, clutch brother. But I wish to visit my siblings when they wake. I want to know them." "That can be arranged," Dr. Saras said. "In fact, we would encourage it. Ember's advanced development could benefit the other hatchlings. Social bonding among draconids is crucial for their psychological health." Over the next several days, the eggs were carefully transferred to the Sanctum's facilities. Tyler helped with the process, ensuring that each egg was handled with the care and respect it deserved. He found himself saying goodbye to eggs he had never seen hatch, making silent promises to 500 future lives that they would be safe and loved. On the final day, as the last egg was being loaded onto the transport shuttle, Velos approached Tyler and said, "You did good work, Mr. Grant. You showed compassion and integrity in a situation where many would have seen only profit or danger." Tyler shrugged and said, "I just did what felt right, Captain." "That is precisely what makes you exceptional," Velos said. "Humans have a reputation in the galaxy for being unpredictable, for acting on emotion rather than logic. But in this case, your emotional response was exactly what was needed. You saw lives that needed protecting, and you protected them." Kellen joined them, his antennae moving in a gesture Tyler had learned meant satisfaction. The Preservation Council has requested your presence at a formal recognition ceremony. They wish to honor you for your role in saving the draconid species from extinction. Tyler felt embarrassed. I don't need recognition. I just want to make sure the eggs are safe. Nevertheless, you will be honored, Kellen said. And perhaps, in time, you will come to understand the significance of what you have accomplished. 3 months passed. Tyler remained on the Meridian Drift, returning to his work as a mechanic while staying in regular contact with the Sanctum. Ember grew steadily, now the size of a small horse, with scales that shimmered like polished gemstones and wings capable of carrying both itself and Tyler in flight. The draconid had become a fixture on the ship, helping with repairs in ways no tool or machine ever could, reaching spaces too small for other crew members and using controlled fire to weld and cut with precision. The other crew members had adapted to having a draconid on board, though some remained wary. But Ember's gentle nature and obvious intelligence won over most doubters. The draconid had a particular talent for finding solutions to problems, often suggesting approaches that the crew had not considered. One day, Tyler received a communication from Dr. Saras. "Mr. Grant," she said, her bioluminescent patches glowing with excitement. "The first of Ember's siblings is ready to hatch. We thought you and Ember would want to be present." Tyler and Ember arrived at the Sanctum aboard a fast shuttle, making the journey in just 4 days. When they entered the incubation facility, Tyler was struck by how different it was from the cold, hidden chamber where he had first found the eggs. Here, everything was warm and bright, with carefully controlled environments tailored to draconid biology. Dr. Saras led them to a private hatching chamber where a single egg rested in a cushioned nest, its shell already showing cracks. "This is number 17, she said. "Based on our monitoring, this hatchling is similar in development rate to Ember. We expect it to be fully aware upon hatching." Ember approached the egg slowly, making soft trilling sounds. The egg responded, cracks spreading more rapidly across its surface. Then, just as Tyler had witnessed months before, a claw emerged, followed by a head with scales of brilliant emerald green. The new hatchling looked around with wide eyes, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings. Then it saw Ember, and something seemed to click. The hatchling made a questioning chirp, and Ember responded in kind. The two draconids touched noses, and Tyler felt something profound in that moment, a connection being formed between siblings who had never met but recognized each other on some fundamental level. The new hatchling then turned to Tyler and said, in the same translated speech Ember used, "You are the one who protected us, the one who spoke in the darkness." Tyler knelt down and said, "I am. My name is Tyler. What would you like to be called?" The hatchling considered this. "Jade. I wish to be called Jade." Over the following months, more eggs hatched. Each new draconid was unique in coloring and personality, but all shared the same advanced intelligence and rapid development that Ember had demonstrated. Some hatchlings bonded with the Sanctum staff, while others preferred to remain together in groups. But all of them remembered Tyler as the one who had saved them, and all of them considered Ember their elder sibling. Tyler found himself visiting the Sanctum regularly, helping to care for the growing population of young draconids and learning more about their species. Dr. Saras and her team were making remarkable discoveries. The draconids were not just intelligent, they possessed abilities that defied conventional understanding. Some could manipulate heat and flame with precision that rivaled industrial tools. Others demonstrated a form of limited telepathy, able to sense emotions and intentions. And all of them showed a capacity for learning that was staggering. One day, as Tyler sat in the Sanctum's observation lounge watching a group of young draconids practice flying, Dr. Saras joined him and said, "We have made an interesting discovery. The draconids are teaching each other at an accelerating rate. Knowledge that takes one hatchling weeks to learn can be absorbed by others in days through some kind of shared understanding. They are building a collective intelligence." Tyler watched Ember leading a formation of younger siblings through a complex aerial maneuver. What does that mean for their future? Dr. Saras was quiet for a moment, then said, "It means they will rebuild their civilization far faster than anyone anticipated. These hatchlings are not starting from zero. They carry genetic memory, fragments of their ancestors' knowledge. As they mature and share what they know, They will recover much of what was lost. That's amazing, Tyler said, but also a little scary. The Draconids were apex predators, right? What happens when 500 of them reach adulthood? That is a question the Preservation Council is actively debating, Dr. Saras said. Some advocate for continued containment, keeping the Draconids in the sanctum indefinitely. Others argue that they should be integrated into galactic society. And there are those who believe the Draconids should be given their own world, allowed to rebuild independently. What do you think they should do? Tyler asked. Dr. Saras looked at him with her large, expressive eyes. I think they should be asked what they want. They are not animals or artifacts. They are people, and people have the right to determine their own destiny. Tyler nodded slowly. He had been thinking the same thing. The Draconids were growing up fast, physically and mentally. It would not be long before they started asking questions about their place in the galaxy, about what happened to their ancestors, and about what they wanted for their future. That night, Tyler sat with Ember on the observation deck of the Meridian Drift, looking out at the stars. The Draconid had grown to full adult size now, massive and magnificent, with a wingspan of nearly 15 meters and scales that reflected light like prisms. But despite the imposing size, Ember remained gentle and thoughtful. Tyler, Ember said quietly, I have been thinking about the future. Tyler smiled. So have I. What are you thinking about? Ember was silent for a moment, then said, My siblings and I are growing stronger every day. Soon we will not need the Sanctum's protection. We will be capable of surviving on our own. And when that time comes, we will need to make a choice. Tyler waited, sensing that Ember had more to say. The galaxy has changed since our ancestors walked among the stars, Ember continued. We do not know what happened to them, why they disappeared, but we know that we cannot simply recreate what was. We must forge our own path. What kind of path? Tyler asked. Ember turned to look at him. A path of balance. The Draconids were feared because they were powerful and often acted without consideration for others. We will be different. We will use our strength to protect, not to dominate. We will share our knowledge, not hoard it. And we will honor the bonds we have formed with those who helped us when we were vulnerable. Tyler felt his throat tighten with emotion. That sounds like a good path, Ember. Ember shifted closer. And I hope you will walk it with me, Clutch Brother. You are not Draconid, but you are family. Always. Always, Tyler agreed. 1 year after the discovery of the eggs, all 503 Draconids had hatched. The Sanctum had become a vibrant community, with young Draconids learning, playing, and growing together. But as Dr. Saras had predicted, the question of their future had become urgent. The Preservation Council called a formal assembly to discuss the matter. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered, each with their own opinions and agendas. Some saw the Draconids as a potential threat that needed to be controlled. Others viewed them as a valuable resource to be exploited, and some genuinely wanted what was best for the young species. Tyler attended the assembly as a witness and advocate. He had been formally recognized as Ember's guardian, which gave him a voice in the proceedings. As he listened to the various representatives argue and debate, he felt frustration building. They were talking about the Draconids as if they were objects or problems to be solved, not people with their own thoughts and desires. Finally, Tyler stood and asked to speak. The assembly fell silent, and all eyes turned to him. With all due respect, he said, I think we're approaching this the wrong way. We're sitting here deciding the fate of 500 individuals without asking them what they want. Shouldn't they have a say in their own future? A consortium official, a tall, blue-skinned humanoid, responded coldly. They are children, barely a year old. They lack the experience and wisdom to make such decisions. Tyler felt anger surge. They may be young, but they're not children in the way you mean. They learn faster than any species I've ever seen. They understand complex concepts and they have their own opinions. If you took the time to actually talk to them instead of talking about them, you'd know that. Before the official could respond, the assembly doors opened and Ember entered, followed by Jade and 3 other Draconids. The sight of 5 full-grown dragons walking calmly into the chamber caused an immediate stir. Several representatives reached for weapons, but the Draconids showed no signs of aggression. They simply walked to the center of the assembly and stood beside Tyler. Ember spoke, its voice carrying clearly through the chamber. We have heard your debates. We have listened to your fears and your plans. And now we will speak for ourselves. The assembly was stunned into silence. We are Draconid, Ember continued. We carry the legacy of an ancient people, but we are not them. We are new, born into a galaxy that has moved on without us. We do not seek to reclaim the power our ancestors held. We seek only to live, to learn, and to contribute to the community of sentient beings. Jade stepped forward and said, "We know that we are feared. Our size, our strength, our fire, these things frighten those who do not know us. But fear is born from ignorance. Let us show you that we can be allies, not threats." Another Draconid, whose scales shimmered like copper, added, "We propose a compromise. Grant us a world where we can establish our own community, but keep it within consortium oversight. Let us prove ourselves through our actions. Judge us not by what our ancestors may have done, but by what we choose to do." The assembly erupted in discussion. Tyler saw some representatives nodding thoughtfully, while others looked skeptical or hostile. But the fact that the Draconids had spoken for themselves had clearly changed the dynamic. The consortium official who had dismissed them earlier stood and said, "This is highly irregular. We cannot simply grant an entire world to a species we know nothing about." Ember turned to face him directly. "Then learn about us. Send observers. Establish whatever monitoring you deem necessary. We have nothing to hide. We only ask for the chance to build a future worthy of the mercy we were shown." After hours of debate, the Preservation Council reached a decision. The Draconids would be granted a world in the Outer Rim territories, a planet designated as Sanctuary. It would be under nominal consortium oversight for a period of 10 years, during which the Draconids would demonstrate their ability to govern themselves and coexist peacefully with other species. At the end of that period, if they had met certain criteria, they would be granted full autonomy. Tyler stood with Ember as the decision was announced, feeling a profound sense of satisfaction. It was not perfect, but it was a start. The Draconids would have their chance. The move to Sanctuary took 6 months to organize and execute. The planet was beautiful, with vast forests, mountain ranges, and oceans that reminded Tyler of Earth. The Draconids took to their new home with enthusiasm, building structures that blended seamlessly with the natural environment and establishing communities that emphasized cooperation and learning. Tyler helped with the initial setup, using his mechanical skills to create infrastructure that would support the growing population. But as the months passed, he began to feel that his role was coming to an end. The Draconids did not need him anymore. They were thriving, building their civilization with remarkable speed and creativity. One evening, as Tyler was preparing to return to the Meridian Drift, Ember found him packing his belongings. "You are leaving," the Draconid said. It was not a question. Tyler nodded. "You don't need me here anymore, Ember. You and your siblings have done an incredible job building this place. It's time for me to get back to my own life." Ember was quiet for a long moment, then said, "You think you are not needed because the work of building is done. But you are wrong, Clutch Brother. The work is never done. And even if it were, you would still be needed, not for what you can do, but for who you are." Tyler felt emotion well up. "I'll visit. As often as I can." "I know you will," Ember said. "But I also know that you will always wonder if you made the right choice in leaving. So let me tell you what I see. I see a human who found 500 frozen lives and chose to save them, even though it brought danger and difficulty. I see someone who spoke to an egg in the darkness because he felt it deserved compassion. I see a Clutch Brother who kept his promise to protect us. That is who you are, Tyler Grant. And that is why you will always have a home here, whether you stay or go." Tyler smiled through tears. "Thanks, Ember. That means more than you know." Ember moved closer and lowered its head, allowing Tyler to rest his forehead against the Draconid's snout. "You gave us life, Tyler, not just by finding us, but by believing we deserved a chance. We will honor that gift by living well, by being the people you believed we could be." Tyler spent another week on Sanctuary, attending a formal ceremony where the Draconids officially established their government and made declarations of their principles. They chose a council structure, with representatives elected from different communities to make decisions for the collective. They established laws focused on cooperation, protection of the weak, and respect for all life. And they made Tyler Grant an honorary member of their society, with the title of Clutch Friend, a designation that had not existed in ancient Draconid culture, but which the young civilization created specifically for him. When Tyler finally boarded the shuttle to return to the Meridian Drift, he looked back at Sanctuary and felt profound satisfaction. The Draconids were going to be fine. More than fine. They were going to thrive. 5 years passed. Tyler continued working as a mechanic on the Meridian Drift, traveling the trade routes and fixing ships. But he kept his promise to visit Sanctuary regularly, watching as the Draconid civilization grew and evolved. True to their word, the Draconids proved to be responsible members of the galactic community. They shared their knowledge freely, developed technologies that benefited multiple species, and acted as mediators in disputes where their neutral position gave them credibility. The consortium's oversight period ended with unanimous approval from the Preservation Council. Sanctuary was granted full autonomy, and the Draconids were recognized as an independent sovereign species. It was a moment of celebration across the galaxy, proof that mercy and compassion could lead to extraordinary outcomes. Tyler attended the ceremony marking this transition. He stood among thousands of Draconids, each one unique and magnificent, and listened as Ember, now serving as the elected first speaker of the Draconid Council, addressed the gathered crowd and the galactic representatives watching via broadcast. 5 years ago, Ember said, "We were nothing but frozen eggs hidden in the hull of a cargo ship, waiting in darkness for a fate we could not control. We were saved not by powerful leaders or advanced technology, but by a simple mechanic who saw lives that needed protecting and chose to act." Tyler Grant represents the best of what any species can be: compassion, determination, and an unwavering belief that every life has value. We dedicate this moment to him and to all those who helped us find our way to this new beginning. The crowd erupted in a sound that was part roar, part harmonious chant. The voices of 500 Draconids joined together in gratitude and celebration. Tyler felt overwhelmed by emotion, humbled by the knowledge that his simple choice to protect those eggs had led to this moment. After the ceremony, Tyler found himself surrounded by young Draconids, many of whom he had helped hatch and raise. They thanked him, shared stories of their lives, and expressed hope for the future. Jade, now serving as Sanctuary's chief educator, told him about the schools they had established and the innovative teaching methods they were developing. Others spoke of art they were creating, technologies they were inventing, and relationships they were building with other species. As the celebration continued into the night, Tyler slipped away to a quiet overlook where he could see the entire valley where the Draconids had built their primary city. The structures glowed with bioluminescent light, creating a tapestry of colors against the darkness. Fires burned in communal gathering spaces, not as weapons or tools, but as symbols of warmth and community. Ember joined him on the overlook, settling beside him with the comfortable familiarity of old friends. "It is beautiful," the Draconid said. "Sometimes I have to remind myself that this is real, that we actually survived." Tyler smiled. "You did more than survive, Ember. You built something incredible. Your ancestors would be proud." Ember was quiet for a moment, then said, "I have been thinking about them lately, about why they disappeared. We may never know the full truth, but I have a theory." "What is it?" Tyler asked. Ember looked out at the city. "I think they forgot how to be part of something larger than themselves. They became so powerful, so isolated in their strength, that they lost connection with the rest of the galaxy. And when a crisis came, whatever it was, they faced it alone. They had no allies, no community to support them. And so they fell." Tyler considered this. "So you're building something different?" "Yes," Ember said. "We are building a civilization based on connection, not isolation. We are powerful, but we choose to use that power in service of others. We are ancient, but we choose to learn from those younger than us. We are Draconid, but we are also part of the galactic community. That is how we will endure." Tyler felt pride surge in his chest. "That's wisdom, Ember. Real wisdom." Ember turned to look at him. "I learned it from you, Clutch Brother. You showed me that strength means nothing if it is not tempered with compassion. You showed me that the most powerful thing one can do is protect those who cannot protect themselves." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights flicker and dance. Then Ember said, "There is something I want to ask you." "Anything," Tyler said. The council has been discussing ways to honor those who helped us. We want to create a memorial, something that will remind future generations of how we came to be. And we want you to help design it. Tyler felt surprised. Me? I'm not an artist or an architect. I'm just a mechanic. Ember's eyes gleamed. You are the one who found us. You know our story better than anyone. Your perspective is exactly what we need. Over the following months, Tyler worked with a team of Draconid artists and engineers to design the memorial. It took the form of a circular plaza at the heart of the city, with 503 pillars arranged in a spiral pattern. Each pillar represented one of the eggs, and at the center stood a statue depicting the moment of discovery, a human mechanic with a plasma torch, cutting through metal to reveal the hidden chamber beyond. But the most striking feature of the memorial was not the pillars or the statue. It was the eternal flame that burned at its heart, maintained by the Draconids themselves, a symbol of the warmth and protection that had been extended to them when they were most vulnerable. An inscription around the flame read, "From darkness to light, from isolation to community, from extinction to hope. We remember the mercy shown and vow to extend it to others." The memorial was dedicated on the 6th anniversary of Tyler's discovery of the eggs. Representatives from across the galaxy attended, including Captain Velos and First Officer Kellen, who had both retired from active service but maintained close ties with the Draconid community. Dr. Saras was there, along with dozens of Sanctum staff who had helped raise the first hatchlings. And standing at the center of it all was Tyler Grant, the human mechanic who had started it all by simply choosing to care. As Tyler stood before the memorial, looking at the statue that bore his likeness and the pillars that represented 500 lives saved, he felt the weight of what had happened truly settle on him for the first time. He had changed the galaxy, not through grand ambitions or powerful technology, but through simple compassion. He had seen lives that needed protecting, and he had protected them, despite the danger, despite the uncertainty, despite having no idea what the outcome would be. Ember stood beside him and said, "What are you thinking, Clutch brother?" Tyler smiled. "I'm thinking about that day in the hall when I first found the eggs. I was just trying to fix a damaged plate. I had no idea what I was about to discover. It's funny how the biggest moments in our lives can start with something so ordinary." Ember nodded. That is the nature of meaningful change. It rarely announces itself with fanfare. It arrives quietly, in small choices made by individuals who simply do what feels right. Tyler looked at the eternal flame and said, "I hope others can learn from this. I hope they understand that every life matters, that every choice to show mercy and compassion can have ripples far beyond what we imagine." "They will," Ember said. "This memorial will stand for thousands of years, reminding future generations of the day humanity reached out its hand to an unknown species and said, 'I will protect you.' That message will endure long after we are gone." The dedication ceremony concluded with a traditional Draconid flight display. All 503 members of the species took to the air simultaneously, their scales glittering in the sunlight, their wings creating patterns of shadow and light across the city below. They flew in formation, weaving together in complex geometries that represented unity and strength through cooperation. And at the center of the formation flew Ember, the first to hatch, leading its siblings in a celebration of life and survival. Tyler watched from the ground, his heart full. This was what he had protected. This was what his choice had created. Not just 500 individual lives, but an entire civilization with unlimited potential, a people who would shape the galaxy for millennia to come through their actions and their values. As the years continued to pass, the Draconids became increasingly integrated into galactic society. They established embassies on dozens of worlds, formed alliances with multiple species, and contributed to scientific, artistic, and philosophical advancement across countless fields. Their rapid development and ancient genetic knowledge allowed them to make breakthroughs that other species had struggled with for centuries. But they never forgot their beginning. Every Draconid child learned the story of Tyler Grant and the 500 frozen eggs. They learned about the darkness of the hidden chamber, the warmth of the first voice that spoke to them, and the choice one human made to protect lives he had never met. It became a foundational myth for their culture, a reminder of the debt they owed and the responsibility that came with their survival. Tyler continued his work as a mechanic, though he became something of a celebrity in certain circles. Young mechanics across the galaxy cited him as inspiration, evidence that their profession could lead to meaningful impact. Universities invited him to speak about ethics and decision-making in crisis situations. And the Draconids frequently requested his presence at important events, not as a guest of honor, but as family. On the 10th anniversary of the discovery, Tyler returned to Sanctuary for what had become an annual tradition. He spent the day with Ember and the other Draconids, sharing stories and catching up on the developments of the past year. In the evening, they gathered at the memorial for a quiet ceremony of remembrance. As Tyler stood beside the eternal flame, surrounded by friends who towered over him but treated him as an equal, he reflected on the journey that had brought him here. He thought about the scared mechanic who had cut through a damaged hull plate and found something impossible. He thought about the choice to protect rather than report, to care rather than profit. And he thought about how that single decision had rippled outward, changing not just his life, but the trajectory of an entire species. Ember approached and said, "I have news, Clutch Brother." Tyler smiled. "Good news, I hope." "The best," Ember said. "Jade is expecting. The first Draconid eggs in over a century will be laid within the next few months. We are going to be a growing species again, not just survivors, but a thriving people." Tyler felt joy surge through him. "That's incredible, Ember. Congratulations to both of you and to all the Draconids." Ember's expression grew thoughtful. "It is a profound responsibility to bring new life into the world, to shape the next generation, to ensure they understand the values we have built this civilization upon. I find myself thinking about what you told me when I was young, about how you spoke to my egg in the darkness. I want to do that for my children. I want them to know they are loved before they even hatch." Tyler put a hand on Ember's scaled forearm. "You'll be a wonderful parent. You and Jade both. And you have a whole community ready to support you." "As I was supported," Ember said. The cycle continues. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the flame dance and flicker. Then Tyler said, "Can I ask you something? Do you ever regret it? The way things turned out? You and your siblings could have demanded more from the galaxy. You're powerful enough that no one could have stopped you if you wanted to take rather than cooperate. Do you ever wonder what that would have been like?" Ember considered the question carefully, then said, "No, I do not regret it, and I never wonder. Power without purpose is meaningless. Strength without wisdom is dangerous. We could have taken, but what would we have built? A civilization based on fear and force? That is not a legacy worth leaving. We chose a different path, and that path has brought us joy, fulfillment, and genuine connection with others. That is worth more than any amount of power." Tyler nodded. "That's the right answer." Ember looked at him with those ancient, knowing eyes. "It is the answer you taught me, Clutch Brother. You could have sold us to the highest bidder when you found us. You could have claimed ownership or demanded payment for saving us. But you did not. You chose to do what was right, not what was profitable or powerful. We simply followed your example." The ceremony at the memorial concluded as the 3 moons of Sanctuary rose above the horizon, casting silver light across the city. The Draconids dispersed slowly, returning to their homes and their lives. But many stopped by Tyler to express gratitude and affection. He received embraces from beings who could have crushed him with a casual flex of their muscles, but who instead treated him with a gentleness that spoke to their true nature. When most of the crowd had departed, Tyler found himself alone with Ember once more. The Draconid seemed contemplative, staring at the statue at the center of the memorial. "That is not really what you look like," Ember said finally. Tyler laughed. "No. They made me look way more heroic than I am. I'm pretty average as humans go." Ember shook its head. "You misunderstand. They captured your likeness well enough. But they could not capture the most important part. They could not show the fear you felt when you discovered us, or the doubt you experienced when you decided to protect us, or the courage it took to face danger for beings you did not know. Those are the things that made you heroic, and those cannot be rendered in stone." Tyler felt humbled. "I was just trying to do the right thing." "Yes," Ember said, "and that is exactly why you succeeded where others might have failed. You were not trying to be a hero. You were trying to be good. That is a far more difficult thing." They walked together through the city, passing through neighborhoods where Draconid families were settling in for the night. Young hatchlings played in courtyards, supervised by parents who watched with loving vigilance. Elders gathered in communal spaces to share stories and wisdom. Artists worked in open studios, creating sculptures and paintings that depicted their world and their dreams. It was a living, breathing civilization, full of complexity and potential. This is what 500 frozen eggs became, Tyler thought. This is what mercy and compassion created. As they reached the edge of the city, where the developed areas gave way to wild forests, Ember stopped and said, "I want you to know something, Tyler. Whatever happens in the future, whether the Draconids thrive for millions of years or face new challenges that test us, we will always remember this moment. We will remember the human who found us, who protected us, who taught us the value of compassion. Your legacy is woven into the foundation of our civilization, and nothing can erase that." Tyler felt tears prick his eyes. "I don't know what to say to that." "You do not need to say anything," Ember replied. "Just know that you mattered. Your life, your choices, your actions, they mattered more than you will ever fully comprehend. And that is true for all beings, not just you. Every choice to show kindness, every decision to protect rather than harm, every moment of compassion in the face of fear, these things ripple outward in ways we cannot predict. You taught us that. Now we teach it to others." They stood together at the boundary between civilization and wilderness, between past and future, and Tyler felt a deep sense of peace. He had fixed a ship. He had found frozen eggs. He had made a choice. And from that simple series of events, an entire civilization had been born, a people who would carry forward the values of compassion and cooperation for generations to come. The next morning, Tyler prepared to depart Sanctuary once again. His shuttle waited at the spaceport, fueled and ready for the journey back to the Meridian Drift. But before he left, he made one final stop at the memorial. He stood before the eternal flame and read the inscription once more. From darkness to light, from isolation to community, from extinction to hope. We remember the mercy shown and vow to extend it to others. Ember joined him, as did Jade and many of the other Draconids Tyler had come to know well over the years. They stood in a circle around the flame, a moment of quiet respect and remembrance. Finally, Tyler spoke. "I want to thank all of you for letting me be part of your story, for treating me as family, for building something beautiful from a moment of crisis. You've shown the galaxy what's possible when beings choose cooperation over conflict, mercy over cruelty. Keep doing that. Keep being the light that guides others." Ember stepped forward and bowed its head, a gesture of profound respect. "And we thank you, Tyler Grant, clutch friend of the Draconid people. You gave us life. We will honor that gift by living well." The other Draconids echoed the sentiment, their voices joining together in a harmonious acknowledgement that sent chills down Tyler's spine. Then, one by one, they approached him for final embraces and words of parting. It took nearly an hour for Tyler to say goodbye to everyone, but he did not rush it. These moments mattered. These connections were real. When he finally boarded the shuttle and the engines powered up, Tyler looked out the viewport at the assembled Draconids. They had formed a line along the spaceport's edge, wings spread in a traditional gesture of farewell. As the shuttle lifted off, they took to the air, escorting him up through the atmosphere in a display of honor and affection. Ember flew closest to the shuttle, matching its speed and trajectory with effortless grace. Through the view screen, Tyler could see the Draconid's eyes, ancient and wise, filled with emotion. Then Ember spoke, the words transmitted directly to the shuttle's communication system. "Until we meet again, Clutch Brother. May your path be filled with purpose and your heart be filled with peace." Tyler's voice was thick with emotion as he replied, "Until we meet again, Ember. Take care of your siblings. Take care of your children. Build something wonderful." As the shuttle broke through the last layer of atmosphere and entered the darkness of space, Tyler watched Sanctuary grow smaller behind him. The planet glowed like a jewel against the black void, its lights twinkling like stars. And surrounding it, like a crown of living gems, the Draconids flew in formation, a final tribute to the human who had saved them. Tyler sat back in his seat and let out a long breath. He was just a mechanic. He fixed ships. But on one particular day, he had fixed something far more important. He had fixed a future that had been on the brink of extinction. He had fixed 500 frozen lives and given them a chance to thrive. And as the shuttle's engines engaged for the journey back to the Meridian Drift, Tyler Grant smiled. Because he knew that somewhere in that ship, in some forgotten corner or hidden chamber, there might be another discovery waiting. Another chance to make a difference. Another opportunity to choose compassion over indifference. That was the lesson the Draconids had taught him in return. That every day brings new chances to matter, to make choices that ripple outward in unexpected ways. And that the greatest power any being possesses is not strength or intelligence or technology, but the simple decision to care. Tyler returned to his work on the Meridian Drift, but he was changed. He approached each job with new awareness, understanding that even the most routine task could lead to something extraordinary. He treated his fellow crew members with greater patience and kindness, recognizing that every being carried their own burdens and deserved respect. And he kept his eyes open, always watching for those moments where a choice could make all the difference. The galaxy moved on, as it always did. New conflicts arose, new discoveries were made, and new challenges emerged. But in the Outer Rim territories, on a planet called Sanctuary, 500 Draconids built their civilization with care and wisdom, guided by the example of a human mechanic who had shown them mercy in their darkest hour. And when the next generation of Draconid eggs was laid, when Jade and Ember became parents to the first naturally born Draconids in over a century, they taught their children the story of Tyler Grant. They spoke to the eggs in the darkness, just as Tyler had once spoken to them, offering words of warmth and protection and love. The cycle continued. The legacy endured. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, a cargo hauler named the Meridian Drift continued its endless journey, carrying a mechanic who understood that the most important thing one can do is choose to care, even when it's difficult, even when it's dangerous, even when the outcome is uncertain. Because that is what heroes do. Not the heroes of legend and myth, but the real heroes, the ones who fix ships and find frozen eggs and decide that some things are worth protecting, no matter the cost. Tyler Grant was that kind of hero, and the galaxy was better for it. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also, leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.